Hello, guys. Welcome to my show, Two Chapters and Curtains. And today we are joined by none other than Siddharth Gigoo, who needs no introduction, but I'm just touching upon basic credentials here. He's a novelist and he's an anthologist, writer, and a filmmaker. Also, he has won Commonwealth Short Prize for his short story, The Umbrella Man. Hello, Siddharth. Welcome to this show.
Thank you, Avantika. Thank you so much.
So, to start with today's conversation, we would want to know when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer, and how has your creative journey of being a writer evolved?
Yes, it all started in the childhood, Avantika, as for most of us, you are sitting by the windowsill one summer day, in a place like Srinagar, a beautiful view through the window, and you're just enjoying that view, and something catches your attention. It could be a bird in the sky, it could be a cloud which is wafting by, right? Or it could be a story in a book, which happens to be the very first book you happen to read, right? S- so it was a day, a beautiful summer's day. I think I must have been 8 or 9, uh, when I think I was in the midst of this beautiful short story by Rabindranath Tagore, of course, an English translation. The book was given to me by my father, who taught English that time. And I was drawn, I was like, I was hypnotized by that short story. And then I kept on reading, like most kids do. That's what we do as kids, we read. Sometimes we read textbooks, or sometimes we read uh, a storybook or a book of poetry, or an art book for that matter. And I think I must have scribbled something in my journal. I think as kids, most of us keep journals, right? These days, I think we maintain diaries on our laptops, or maybe a note, and we maybe email it to us. But those days, we used to have this notebooks, copybooks. So I continued writing almost on a daily basis, and I think I realized very early on, maybe because of my father also, he said, look, you should discover the joy of reading and writing and painting and music and nature. So, so these initial uh, suggestions came from my father, and a little bit from my grandfather also, he said, whatever you do in life, don't pay that much attention to mathematics and sciences. He said, in his own quintessential way, he said, you should study the arts, humanities. It took me many years to understand that. I think what he was saying, the meaning of what he was saying. He said, you start with arts, you will fall in love with the world of physics and mathematics and numbers. I think a time comes when we are drawn to nature and poetry and music, Avantika, right? I think a time comes in our life. Uh, so I think I'm right now at the stage where I really enjoy reading and writing and music, and the arts and the theater and cinema. And these days, it's very easy because we have this cell phone. Of course, it's bad as well because we are over dependent on it. It becomes an addiction, but we are exposed to this. Then we have this window to this fabulous world, right? It has wildlife, it has history, it has arts, music, it has entertainment, it has everything. And this cell phone has this. So those days, I think the only thing we had is maybe a book, or so. We had a few pencils, a few crayons, few paintbrushes, and we had all the time. These days, we don't have time. We have everything. you know. So it started with that, And then my dad said, he taught me, because he taught poetry as well, so he taught me initial. My mom was a teacher in a school that time. So she taught me Hindi poetry, my grandfather Urdu. So it started with that, But I still did not know what I want to do in life. But my dad said, whatever you want to do, you can become anything, for a career, eventually you will do some job or the other, right? Uh, Whether in government or private, but always keep reading and writing. That was the suggestion which stayed with me. So it started with that, I think it's still his advice. Uh, I'm still surrounded with that advice every day. I keep on telling that to myself. No wonder how the days come and go.
Mm.
There should not be a day which doesn't go by without stopping by a line of poetry or maybe one line. Just one single line. It
Mm.
might take hours. So I think that we call that a meaningful day, a productive day, if we. So it
Mm.
started with that, Avantika. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, absolutely. So just taking it a little forward, you have written novels, you have written short stories, you have written poetry, and you have also written and worked around short films. What is it which interests you the most amongst these so many things that you bring on the table?
So I never thought of it like that, Avantika. You
Hmm.
know, uh, I I thought of everything like this garland, a string of words or a string of musical notes.
Hmm.
So uh, the very word language was fascinating to me. It always is fascinating. I think most of the troubles we have in our lives is because of language. Let me give an example. So there is so much of, am I happy? Am I not happy? I had a good day. I had a bad day. I'm sad. I'm successful. Uh, I don't know where I'm going. I know what I want,
Hmm.
Uh, and our regular communication when we talk with friends or family early morning. How are you? What's up? How are you? The small talk. And sometimes we run out of words, We have really nothing to say. So I think this very language, I think sometimes becomes a burden. Because of this language, because it's conditioning, we say, I'm not happy. I want to die. So if we strip ourselves completely, we become language free. We really become free. So I've always had an academic interest towards language. So with words, for instance, whether those words are in Hindi or English or Urdu or Sanskrit or French, doesn't matter. You know, uh, and that fascination with words and with notes, musical notes, continues till this day. For an artist, it might be a stroke. You know, for a cook, it's something you know which relates to cooking. For a gardener, it's all about the soil. That's the language. For a writer, for somebody who loves writing and reading, it's all about words, right? So I never thought of it as, or for that matter, people like me who are obsessed with cinema, you know, films, all sorts of films, as a means of entertainment and education and awareness, right? So I never thought of it as poetry. Should I do poetry or should I write a short story or a novel? It's all starts with one word. It starts with a string. It becomes a sentence, and after sentence after sentence,
Hmm.
Uh, and then it might be it might be prose, but who knows? It might be poetic prose. You always insert a little bit of poetry in that. Or if it is poetry, it might be, you know, a little bit of prose poetry. And then a little bit of music, so and a little bit of some, you know, uh, all senses, the sense of touch, the sense of hearing, the sense of sight, sound. I mean, that's all. That's how we perceive the world and we perceive ourselves. Uh, so I always, I think, thought that it is pointless to, whether it's poetry or prose or photography. I think these were things which I always wanted to do in life. No matter what you do, I could have become a teacher, or I could have become a policeman, or I could have joined the army, or I could have become a clerk, for that matter, in a in a in a in a government office. But I always knew that this world of words and musical notes and images will always remain fascinating, and it is still fascinating. I think that's what I think we are still drawn to social media these days, because it opens up the world for us, and it
Yes.
shows us great photographs, images.
Hmm.
Sometimes we stay, sometimes we don't.
Hmm.
But if we open our hearts, I'm
Hmm.
sure those images, those words, that music, that rhyme, that absurdity, uh, that drama will touch us. So in any case, I think I started writing poetry, then I started writing short stories, no matter what. My first book was published as a student in 93. Uh, it's called Fall and Other Poems. It's out of print. Writers Workshop that time was a very reputed, uh, publishing house in Calcutta.
Hmm.
So I was 17. I was 17. My first book of poetry was. I was elated because I used to think that you can write a poem a day, and still a very special book for me, because all I did those days was kind of write poetry.
Hmm.
And then I think, I went on to write more. My second book of poetry came out, that time I think around 10 people in the neighborhood got to know. We just migrated out of, yeah, not migrated is not the right word. We were forced out of Kashmir, as you know, in 1990. So we were living in exile. I think a lot of writers
Hmm.
who happened to be reputed writers, senior writers, my dad's generation that time, we're very happy that, because I think this book has poems about love and about exile and displacement and dreams and other things. They were very happy that, I think I was able to kind of come up with a book. My dad helped in publishing, and we would sit, somewhere in the bazaar with this book, and other people would bring their own books, so that we used to have these mini gatherings, at shop fronts or the school compound or the college, park or the garden, and we used to just exchange ideas and read out passages. Unfortunately, we don't have much of photographs because none of us had a camera you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
but those memories, I think, are still with me. Uh, and eventually I went on to write stories and novels. Was very, an obsession, because the world of novels is fascinating. I mean, as kids, all of us read short stories and novels, right? We read fairy tales, but the aim, something I would love to do is to write a children's book or a fairy tale. I really, really, have always, you know, found this world of fairy tales fascinating.
Hmm.
There's princesses, there's a duck, there's a cat, there is this, grandmother, who is not so good, and then this prince, and it's snowing out. So thin, you know. And so maybe uh, if I uh, muster my passion and strength, I should be able to write a children's fairy tale.
Yes, we are looking forward to that also. Uh, so whatever happened in 1989, 90,
Thank
like
you.
you just mentioned,
Yeah.
did that add on to your presence in the literary world, like the kind of literature you write? And so beautifully, you have also written books around this topic, very in depth also. So, has this kind of maybe, given you that kind of push to maybe pen it down? Is that also there?
Yes, very much. Uh, what happened to us as a community and as individuals and as a family?
Mm.
Uh, as a, of course, as a individual first, but as a family second, as a community third.
Yes.
In 1989, 1990, and it's modern India, right? Um, so this isn't 1947. This is,
Yeah.
it's been what,
35
35
years.
years, but it is still not a long period in history, right? It is
Mm.
modern India. We were still sending rockets in space. So
Yes.
what happened? The tragic chapter was something which was made to happen, and we got displaced overnight. 500,000 Kashmiri Pandits, including my family, and we had nowhere to go. Of course, that shaped our worldview, not just mine. It shaped everybody's worldview that time across the three generations. People who were in the 60s and 70s, and all they had hoped for or
Mm.
longed for is to live and die in their homes. And people, middle-aged people, right? And they had a life, they had a career, they had,
Mm.
and they had hoped for long for the same.
Mm.
And children
Mm.
and youngsters like me, which is the teenagers like me,
Mm.
uh, who did not know what was to come. So, of course, what happened, and then years we got to, I mean, we were forced to, say, study in a camp school, a camp college, live in a camp, live next to a camp, uh, year after year, Avantika. So that has, of course, had an impact. It's still, that impact will never go away for generations. Now you see students studying trauma studies, which is offered as a degree course.
Yes.
I think that time in the 70s, 80s, none of the universities in India offered this. But I mean, we now realize that there is generational trauma. Jews are still facing that, right? So in
Yes.
our case, of course, we still find ourselves impacted at an emotional level, psychological level, societal level, economic level, what happened,
Mm.
for all of us to have been forced out of our homes,
Mm.
and it's like somebody snatching everything from you, everything. And
Yes.
then you,
Mm.
and then it becomes a question of survival, right?
Mm.
Avantika, survival at various levels.
Mm.
uh, the physical level is just one aspect. There is this emotional level, there is a spiritual level, psychological level, family level, community level. There's so many dimensions to the survival. So of course it impacted, and I think for many of us, you know for some people they took to activism, some people took to cinema, some people took photography. Unfortunately, there are not too many cameras around, you could not afford, but some of us took to writing, right? I thought, what else will I do?
Mm.
What is happening to me? What is happening to all of me, all of us together? I might as well capture that, right? But I'm not sure if I've been able to capture some part of it. Avantika, cannot be captured because there are no words. You know,
Mm.
the kind of uh, difficulties we have seen as individuals and as families and as a community, especially women, elderly women, especially women, uh,
Mm.
young girls in camps, women.
Mm.
I am not sure. None of us will be able to portray that. I tried, but I failed. So this book, which came out, I think, last year, A
Yes.
Long Season of Ashes, uh, is a
I've read
memoir.
this book. Yes.
Yeah. So this book came out last year. It's A Long Season of Ashes.
Mm.
So the title Ashes, it's not my title.
Okay.
I think it's this we the Kashmiri word for ashes, Avantika, is sur, Soor or Sur, sur. Not sure of the etymology. Maybe
Mm.
maybe a little bit of Sanskrit, maybe a little bit of Arabic or Persian. Who knows? Is sur. So there were a lot of people. especially the elderlies that time, or even the middle-aged, women including, I found, uh, I came across that time who used to use this word,
mm,
in different contexts, when you die, you leave behind residue. And sometimes you say that my life is just a pile of ashes because
mm.
all you saw every day was deaths and devastation. You
Yes.
know, like hundreds and thousands of people, I think, perished because
Mm,
they could not survive,
mm,
day after day. And I was a witness to that. So comes a time, a stage in your life, Avantika. How do you paint that
mm,
mountain of ashes? And what are the words which can describe what happens? So inside, women carrying this mountain of ashes, you know,
mm,
or this fistful of ashes, because that was life, very difficult,
mm,
meaningless. Like you've
mm,
lost everything. You don't know whether there's any meaning to live.
mm.
So I think I'm still grappling with that. It will never go away, and I don't wish for it to go away, honestly. It should never
Yes.
go away because it is part of our history and it is part of the identity. You know, while it is important to move on, Avantika, right? But it is important not to, forget it and
Mm,
not to document it, not to talk about it. So of course that what happened, in 1990,
mm,
the persecution last year, Kashmir, which was, everybody in Kashmir was praying for our ouster and threatening us, right? So I think it's history. We know it.
yes.
Uh, and thinking of us uh, as a community which should not even exist, just because we happen to be Hindus.
Mm,
And then finally we are left with no choice but to leave. Had we not left, we
mm,
would have been killed. And it was already happening. And then those years in exile. So
mm,
how do we, as youngsters, in my father started writing, I started writing, a lot of people in my generation, some poetry, some drama, some
mm,
stories. How do you document history?
mm.
Is through these stories until this day. So it has had a big impact. I think 80% of world literature, Avantika, is nothing but displacement. 80% of world literature is displacement. Uh, and over the centuries and centuries, I think we have seen communities getting displaced,
Yes.
So, so even 80% of world art or music is displacement, You see Jewish art and
Yes.
expression, or Palestinian or African, right?
Yes.
It's
Mm,
all about, displacement. That is the
mm.
source. One thing.
Yes. So, sir, now coming back to your writings, your writing style has been described as deeply lyrical. So, how do you approach voice and tone while developing a character? What is it that you think about while developing a particular character?
Uh, so I remember whatever little I know of this Avantika. And these days, I think there's enough information available about the art of writing or the art of composing. If
Hmm,
you want to learn anything, any art, it's very easy to learn
hmm,
because all you need uh, is an internet connection. There's a lot of information on YouTube. There is a
hmm,
lot of information on other websites.
hmm,
But when I was growing up, I think my dad, I used to have these discussions with my dad, because he himself was a poet and a painter, and
hmm,
my grand uncle was a musician and a poet and a painter, and my great grandfather was a scholar. So it was, I think, those conversations with my father, about because he taught me literature
hmm,
and poetry. eh, Inevitably, these conversations came up,
hmm,
in terms of character. I think in all of us as kids read textbooks, and there is an element in, when we read Hindi ki textbook or
hmm,
English ki textbook, we'll always be asked to critique,
Hmm.
uh, a piece of, uh, an essay for, निबंध लिखते थे हम उस टाइम पे
Hmm.
या कविताएं,
Hmm.
So, uh, so I think I stayed with that conversation. What is, how should one write? कविता कैसे लिखते हैं और ऐसे कैसे लिखते हैं? It all starts with my best friend, right?
Hmm.
Or my hobby, or or any aspect of nature,
Hmm.
different points of view, and then building a story.
Hmm.
Uh, and then from an audience perspective, from the perspective of sometimes you not writing for an audience. You're not writing. You're not even writing for yourself. You're just writing for the sake of writing. Who cares? That's also okay.
Hmm.
Audience comes into mind only when you are sitting in a park with a lot of people and when you really want their responses. If you're not bothered about their responses, who cares? So
Hmm.
you have your own freedom to write, to express yourself. But those conversations were very exciting conversations. To even now, those conversations are very relevant. How should we build a character? What is a good story? What is plot? What is dramatization? What is narrative? A part of it is all theory, a part of it is practice, Avantika.
Hmm.
But a part of it is uh, something which is under your control, and a part of it is something which might not be. It depends. So I think these conversations are regular conversations with myself these days. My dad is no more. I can't. I mean, sometimes I talk to him even if he's not there. But we lost him last year. I
Hmm.
remember until the very last, I used to have these conversations with him, beautiful conversations. I've
Hmm.
read this new novel. I see this a new interesting story. I would narrate. Then we would say, "Have you read this? Have you watched this movie?
Hmm.
Have you seen this painting I've come across?"
Hmm.
It's all about engaging with various things of art, works of art.
Hmm.
So it's an everyday learning, Avantika. There is no you can't answer that question. Every day you discover new things. And you kind of experiment, and you kind of keep experimenting, and you kind of develop your own style, and after a time you it keeps on evolving. That style itself keeps on evolving. And sometimes you're not really satisfied, so sometimes a story might take 1 month or 6 months or 1 year or 10 years. it it needn't be rushed. It
Hmm.
should not be rushed. So So those conversations are still with me. Every day I think, if I've been, something or the other, we keep on writing almost every other day. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And then sometimes we keep on refining and refining and refining and refining and polishing. And it's like music. आज आप कोई
Yes.
गाना गाते हो, कल आप वही गाना गाओगे, but एक different अंदाज से गाओगे. Same happens for same.
Hmm.
Yesterday you might have cooked the best omelette. Today you will give it a different touch.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's all about ways of, what we do, our day-to-day lives, and how we kind of keep on experimenting.
So you mentioned about Arvind Giguji, and he is a known literature, English literature professor. He has written novels, and he has also written, rather translated Lal Ded, and that book has received national and international recognition. And also that happened when he was almost, you were the one who took over Lal Date, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
went ahead with that and got it published, and you were there very actively participating. How do you put this entire journey, and how do you see Lal Date being there, coming into being, and getting such a huge recognition?
So this is the book, which came out a few months ago, published by Om Books.
Yes.
Uh, the title is I, a Pot Desire Home, Lalded, Songs of the Naked Poet, an interpretation by Arvind Gigoo. Uh, so Lalded is a household name in Kashmir.
Hmm.
It's one of the greatest, I think the greatest saint poetess. of
Hmm.
Kashmir. Uh, and not much is known about her life, Whatever is known about her life is all written in just 1 or 2 pages, because there's not much of documentation. This great uh, 14th century saint poetess.
Yes.
Uh, who- and she left us with these walks. Walk is a Kashmiri word for verse, short verses. And some of those walks are really very popular in Kashmir. So, almost everybody, 6, 7 walks, they happen to be very, very popular and oft quoted, oft quoted for their music, for their beauty, for their wisdom especially, Uh, so my father started, it started as a translation, because
Yes.
uh, I think in 1991, 92, in Udhampur, my father took to sculpting. And then, and then he started translating many Kashmiri. One of the reasons for the translation was that, Udhampur became this hub of, of exile expression. Uh, because a lot of Kashmiri Pandit writers, you know, settled in Udhampur,
Hmm.
at least 20, 30 very senior, reputed Kashmiri Pandits, mostly from Anantnag and some from Srinagar, who were very well known in Kashmir for their literary works. They were poets, mostly poets, who wrote in Kashmiri. And they settled in Udhampur, not in Jammu or other parts of India. Many of them were actually living in camps. So I think somehow or the other they realized that a day will come, nobody will remember because not many people will read Kashmiri, So it happened maybe a little bit by chance or accident or maybe
Hmm.
by design also. They thought my father is the best person to translate. So they approached him and he started translating
Hmm.
poetry, and whatever is available these days is self-published, and
Hmm.
published privately by these poets.
Hmm.
But it kind of, you know, uh, these translations are, I think, giving those poets and their works citizenship in another language, English language.
Hmm.
So, and Lalded also happened similarly at that time. I think my father started translating Lalded, and soon he realized that it's not a translation because you can't translate Lalded for various reasons.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can perhaps only interpret Lalded. You can perhaps, uh, how would it be to render Lalwaks, those verses in the English language, which has limitations, and which has profound limitations. And so each of these lalwaks is nothing but 4 lines or 5 lines. I mean, there's just 10 or 15 words.
Yes. I've
Uh,
gone through, I've
yeah,
read the entire
yeah.
book.
And these days, it's uh, anyway. These days, attention spans are very less. So I think it's easy for people to just pick up, and you can actually
Hmm.
stay with, and each of these lalwaks will stay with you. And so I think a time came, my father realized it's point, you will never finish such a work. You will never, you know, uh, every time you look at it, it will lull that will speak to you in different ways. It she helps you discover this whole, unravel this whole mystery. She opens up new paths, right? Fabulous paths. Uh, so I think my initially my father, I think he would have notebooks, and then of course when he got his own laptop, then it became a project, and he would use a laptop. Then I think after years, I said to him, I said, why should we just maybe consider publishing? Because himself is a very reputed writer and translator. He said, yeah, of course, we must. But he said, no, I need to do some more work on it, right? So Eventually, when his health, he was not in his best of his health towards the last part of his life, in 2022 and 2023. Then I thought, no, I think, you know, uh, those of us who love Lalde should get to read this interpretation of my dad's. And it's a very beautiful interpretation. So, of course, the words are English, but the essence is Lalde. And my father has written a very interesting translator's note for all the readers who might have difficulty understanding what was the terms when my father started translating. And I wrote an introduction which I talked about my own experience with having seen uh, my father work on it year after year. And it's a beautiful book. It's very relevant these days because I think all of us are driven to you know uh, um, as in, how do I put it? Because of we keep on sharing through WhatsApp and Instagram and whatnot. Sometimes we find ourselves drawn towards these quotes, one lines, and we see, okay, there is a line by Ghalib, or there is a line from the Mahabharata, or there is this line from from Rumi, right? And we instantly share, or a line from by any of our favorite philosophers, writers, artists, thinkers, and we share. You know. So the treatment in the book, this book, uh, uh, is for those of us who love such wisdom, such poetry, such music, and such mystery. And it doesn't require one to read a lot of text and text, just a few sentences, sometimes just words, so just one word. So that is the best part about this book, and I hope people discover this book uh, through the ages.
And now, just taking the last question, not even a question, it's just an advice. You come from such a vast experience when it comes to literature. You come from a family which has deep roots in literature. What is that one advice that you would want to give to aspiring authors or aspiring filmmakers or people in that creative space who are trying to understand and put their foot in that field? What is that one advice that you would like to give them?
I think one thing, all of us are surrounded. We live in a world where almost everybody is giving advice, right? Isn't it? Say, the first thing we do in the mornings, we check Facebook or Instagram.
Hmm.
What's happening there? Almost everybody is giving some advice.
Hmm.
What to do, what to eat, what not to eat, how to, you know,
Hmm.
how to look after your health.
Hmm.
Uh, then musicians are giving advice about music.
Hmm.
Writers are giving about advice. Writers, doctors are giving different types of advice.
Hmm.
Politicians are giving different types of advice. Gardeners or artists or people, everybody is giving advice, right?
Hmm.
So what I have learned, and it's also a matter of constant learning and unlearning, is that, for all of us who are fascinating to this world of creativity, it could be, you see an image, or you have a dream, then you want to kind of, paint that image, through words or through whatever means of expression. Is that uh, it calls for certain madness. It also calls for certain hard work, right? It also calls for certain amount of commitment and dedication, right? It has a mixture of all these things, a combination of all these things, and uh, if you are mad enough to pursue it, you know over a long period of time, it will really be very fascinating. And whatever it is that you would have come out of, it could be a story or a novel or a book or a piece of music or a play or anything or a short film. These days almost everybody's a photographer, and we are all creating content. The word these days is content. Become content creators, reels. Ultimately, these are just windows to worlds, to a one world with different perspectives. Is that one has to be able to uh, constantly learn and unlearn. You can't be rigid about things. You can't be rigid. But no art is bad art, Avantika. No art is bad art. So long as you are practicing, you're creating, expressing. Then nobody will tell you no, it is not good,
mm,
right? With citing some rule book which governs all expression. No, there is no such rule book which governs all artistic expression. No, no such rule book. These are all personal opinions, right?
mm,
That I like it, I don't like it. They don't matter.
mm.
So what matters is your own madness, your own passion, your own, and you have to respect uh, your own desperation. You have to respect your own contradictions. You have to accept it. You have to respect the state you are in, because ultimately it's because of the state you're able to express.
Yes,
You are in a certain state, it comes out in the form of a certain amount of artistic expression. So my advice to uh, everybody out there is that listen to all advices, you know with an open heart.
mm,
Listen, and whatever appeals to you, try, experiment and implement, whatever appeals to you, and then try and find your own voice, and which will keep on evolving, right? Every day it will keep on evolving. Until a time you will no longer be interested in it, you might find something else to do. So that's my advice, because this is what I keep on telling myself as well, on a daily basis around the clock. It's a fascinating world. It's a fascinating times also. I think almost all times are fascinating. The past, the present, the future. And we look at all these because we have language, and if we have the will to kind of paint our pictures, let's do it beautifully. Let's do it well, you know. And let's not be deterred. Let's not be discouraged by those people who will say, no, it's not good. Or those people who will not pay attention to it. Doesn't matter. Just do it for the love of it, you know. Something like you are doing, Avantika. You do it for the love of it, right? And
absolutely.
it's you do it for the early morning. Okay,
Mm,
my job is to interview interesting people
mm,
and to capture the stories and to have my own channel,
mm.
wherein I will have and excellent stories. I think inspiring stories. You do it for the love of it, right? Of course. When you do it for the love of it, I think other things follow. Avantika.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So
Thank you.
that's a very great advice. I'm sure they will get a lot to, I mean, a lot to implement from this.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah. So, Siddharthji, it was a pleasure having you here. Very deep,
Thank you.
insightful conversation. And I'm sure the audiences would first of all, they will understand a lot. They will get a lot of knowledge out of this conversation. And I think people who are from the creative field, they will definitely resonate with this conversation. So thank you. Thanks a lot for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you, Avantika. It's a pleasure, and I hope to keep on talking to you